Maybe. Is OBS happy? I think OBS is happy. All right. We are live. So there are no slides. OBS is happy. And that is not what's on my screen. Do you see? Okay. Technology, man. Oh, no, this isn't technology. This is PubCap. 100% PubCap. I own it. It turns out if you want the picture to go on the slide, you have to plug in the cable. All right, pro tip. I think everything is in alignment now. All right, cool. Today's January 29th, 2025. We're here at ASU, and we are on our second topic here in CSE598, which is format string vulnerabilities. This is a more classic Robert slide deck. This is where we're at. Nothing has changed. We are on the other side of the drop deadline, so there's no point in me scaring people anymore. You're along for the ride one way or another. So what did we do in this first module? We built primitives, right? In the next several weeks of modules are all based around this concept. We take a look at some weird machine. For this week, it's format strings. Next week, it'll be file structs. Then we'll look at kind of deeper heat things. They get increasingly messier machines to play around with. And the modules follow a pretty consistent pattern of the first two challenges are how do we generate an arbitrary read primitive? How do we generate an arbitrary write primitive? And then let's do something fun with that weird machine, whether that is leveraging the arbitrary write or it is something unique to that weird machine to influence control flow. And that's what we'll do for the first half of this course. It's just going to follow this very consistent kind of flow. Now, one of the things that people realized, and I didn't get to hear about it, I got to hear about it secondhand, was that some primitives have constraints, right? Like in this module, since we were doing everything with the Tcache, and the Tcache had safe linking, you had this constraint that anywhere that you wanted to point the heap needed to be 16 byte aligned, right? In a lot of cases, that didn't matter, right? You could kind of get around it. Level 10 in particular was contrived. This was actually done on purpose, right? Such that there were, I'd say, nice targets that you would think of that you would want to try and overwrite, but you couldn't because of this constraint that you had on your arbitrary write in that case, but it would also apply to arbitrary reads. And so in more advanced like exploitation scenarios, it's common to have some constrained primitive, right? Where you are limited to a certain region of memory. Maybe you can only overwrite the least significant byte of a pointer, et cetera, right? There's some limitation on what you can do. It's not just, YOLO wherever you want. And so what you want to try and do is look for opportunities to reduce or eliminate those constraints or pivot to another part of the binary where you can get a more powerful primitive. And that was the intended solution for level 10, is to find a way under this constraint to accomplish your goal by creating the opportunity to have a more powerful primitive. So I mentioned on the Discord, I didn't have time. I didn't know. I almost had this bullet, and I didn't know if I was going to talk about it. So I mentioned that I had this like epiphany, right, the other day while I was driving, and I don't know that I want to actually do it. I was trying to prove it out right before class, right? About how we could generate a more consistent primitive. Here was the thought. You guys can sanity check me here. Oh, you don't want to see whatever that is. I think I'm still on level 10. So we only had T1 and T2, right?
Like two connections.
Yeah. We had two. We had two R1, R2. We had two connections, and I wanted to stick with those two connections. What I wanted to try and do, I copied do.py that we had from class, and I was just like, I'm just going to try and carve this real quick in like 10 minutes and see if I could get what I wanted. This arb read ultimately makes the allocation with that index point to somewhere. So when I call arb read, I ultimately have an arb write if I were to call scanf on that index. And so my thought was, if I were to race R1, I could write to the next pointer of the T cache of R2 and write the address of the next pointer in R1. And what this would give me is the ability to repeatedly malloc and free setting that address. You say that won't work?
I have no idea what you just
okay, no. Like this is why I was just like, this sounds super cool if it works. I don't know that it does. There could be something I'm not thinking of. Okay, so what we end up with is R1's T cache. We have the ability to do an arb write. We assume this. We do that from the T cache of R1. Right? Because we're racing R1, that's where we do the overwrite. That gives us the arbitrary pointer to wherever. So R1, its T cache would point to a next pointer in R2, right? We could do this. I'm then going to leverage. It's going to be great when we find the flaw in this thinking. but you know, like that's part of the fun here. We could leverage this arb write to set the next pointer in R2's T cache to point to R1 to a chunk in R1.
Allocated chunk.
To a free chunk. It would need to be a free chunk that's in the T cache. And so what I end up with is a scenario where R2 is perpetually pointing to a chunk. R2 is always pointing to the next pointer of a chunk in R1. Right? Like I would have that. So I could malloc and I could write this. And what I would do, what the loop would become is leverage R2 to write the address I want. And then I'd be like malloc in R1, at which point I now have a chunk that is the address I defined when I wrote to R2, which is pointing at the next pointer of R1. I may have to do some mangling for safe linking, but you could I'm pretty sure you could do this, at which point there's no more erasing. Because then I can just free back into R1 and then rewrite the next pointer from R2 to malloc it again from R1.
So I think this assumes that you have enough like chunks available in R1. So maybe you can fix that by just freeing a bunch of chunks ahead of time. But
so I would still need to. That's a good point. The statement for Twitch was I'm making the assumption that let's have like 10,000 tabs. I'm making the assumption that I have these chunks available in R1, but I have the ability to do that, right? With this warm-up thing here. And I don't think I need an arbitrary number here. I think I could get away with like 3 in R1 because I'm essentially rewriting that same next pointer every time, right? So then I just put it back. I overwrite from R2. I pull it out. It's now where I want. I put it back. I overwrite it from R2. I pull it out. And I just have, and there's no more constant racing all over the place. I haven't written it to prove it. But that makes sense, right? Like at face value.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was on the way to the grocery store, and it was just like I was thinking about this module because one of you guys said something, and I was just like, wait a minute, couldn't you do? And that just makes everything way easier. It's not how the intendeds work. The intendeds actually do the race every time they try and get a pointer. But I think this is a really clever way of, because I only have to win the race once to get R2 to constantly return me the same TCAS chart.
I did something where I also didn't have to win the race multiple times, but it wasn't this.
And you didn't abuse the unintended?
The unintended? Oh no, I didn't.
Okay. For the record, there is an unintended that has been sitting in this module for forever, and I just have not ever gotten around to rebuilding them because this module is difficult to rebuild because you can lose due to ASLR and like bad bytes, and so it can be a bit of a pain to rebuild it. But you did something else to not race every time.
Yeah.
You
you want to hear what it is? Or-
yeah, I mean, I'm curious.
Okay. So I corrupted the Tcache per thread struct. I like got a chunk over top of the number of allocations and also all the way since we have like 1024 bytes, I was able to stretch all the way down also into the like forward pointer of the 400 byte bin. So I got like
Okay.
infinite allocations to wherever I wanted.
Okay, so it's a similar idea. It's probably cleaner to explain though. So you got like R2, but you would be targeting were you targeting the other thread then?
The other thread? No, it was my own thread. Like
Yeah.
R2.
So
And then I would write to it.
no, but it would matter because each thread has its own Tcache. So it's a different Tcache per thread track.
Yeah. So I got a chunk. I think it was on R2 basically. I had like a chunk on R2's Tcache per thread chunk. And then I could write to it from either thread at that point. And then I could just reallocate from thread 2 to wherever I wanted.
Oh, because you're passing that. Okay. So let's see. We would have R2 pointing to the Tcache per thread struct. So somewhere in there. And if you'll recall from earlier heap nonsense in dynamic allocator misuse, what is the Tcache per thread struct? It's like it consists primarily of like a head pointer for each bin size and then a count. Right? And so by leveraging the race to get to create an arbitrary right that is overwriting the Tcache per thread struct, again, did this without even listening to this inspiring lecture. This amazing individual did exactly that, right? They said, hey, what I have kind of sucks. It's racy, it works, it blows up. Let's utilize this to build a primitive that doesn't have these problems. And that probably drastically simplified most of the module.
Oh, I only figured this out for the last challenge.
Only figured it out for the last challenge? Okay, so that feels a little bit better, right? You at least shared a little bit in the pain. And that's part of the fun of this whole course, or these challenges that we have for this course, is they are much less railroady, and how you decide to solve it is largely however you decide to solve it, and it will be drastically different. For this module, I showed like this is how you do, how you do this, because there was a bit of a panic. We had to like remember everything from 466. Hopefully, you've learned your lesson, and there are better ways to do all of this than whatever I'll show on stream. Right? My code is going to be garbage and should not be copied. I have something here from Twitch. It says I'm currently in the middle of format string hell, brute forcing, fgets buffering. Oh, did I break the camera? No. I don't think that's our module. But anyways, so yeah, I had this thought, and it turns out somebody else had another thought, but we're both doing the same thing, right? And that is something that you should strive to do going forward in the course. So course grades, how do we do? As always, I only count people that at least solve one challenge. That's how I know that you're actually taking this course. Considering for module 1, I pretty much had the flag fall out on stream. I think that's a reasonable expectation. Average student completed 78% of the module on time. You can always solve it late for 50% credit. Some people asked before class if, we got a question. All right, I'll answer that in a moment. That's technical. If we could maybe extend the deadline here, because I know, to be fair, like it was a decent amount of work for the time given, but that was kind of by design, to give something that was a bit of a crunch, just to make sure. This is not the hardest module by far in this class, but it also is not the easiest module, right? I'd say it's somewhere around the 75% mark as far as effort goes. I honestly don't care. Like I'm not here to ding you for your grade. I just want you to learn stuff. So what I think I'll do is I will just make the whole module due at like, I don't know, spring break. Right? I think that's fair, because I just don't. I want you to try it. So we'll do that. That's kind of a YOLO audible call here live. All right. So what does Twitch say? Do you need to overwrite the Tcache per thread structure, or can you just create a bigger chunk that will be the first unsorted bin in the main arena pointer? So you're asking questions about deeper things in the heap than what we've covered in this course so far, because you're talking about like the unsorted bin. The challenge in particular that we were looking at. Oh, I just need this button. You did not get to control the allocation size, and you only had the ability to malloc and free. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't do shenanigans to go deeper into the heap, because we didn't outright stop you. We didn't limit you to 7 allocations, but it certainly wasn't intended. But do you need to overwrite the Tcache per thread struct? The answer is no. You could do the entire module doing crazy races to obtain your pointers. And that was, up until I had the grocery thought, the intended solution for all of them. We might revisit that later. All right, cool. Yeah, like it would blow up occasionally, but like you could use the race primitive to get a point every time. All right, format string vulnerabilities. One of the things that I got asked privately is like, hey, this first module asked a lot of me. I thought I kind of made that clear with the slide with all of the, hey, you need to know this stuff. But what do you need to know to do format string vulnerabilities? That isn't just format string vulnerabilities. The expectation is you're comfortable debugging, reversing, so you can fire up IDA, you can fire up GDB, you can look at things, you can reason about what's going on in the binary. You have some idea of what overriding the GOT is, because there was a challenge that asks you to do that, and you are familiar with ROM. These aren't explicitly needed to understand format string vulnerabilities, but they are needed to complete the module. And you'll find that this is consistent over the next several weeks because all of the modules follow the same pattern. All right, demo plans. Let's poke at format strings. This is going to be somewhat redundant with the pre-recorded lectures. Out of curiosity, who has seen the pre-recorded lectures? All right, do you have deep and burning questions having seen them? Because we can speed run it if there was anything that was unclear.
They're not in recent memory.
They're not in recent memory. That's fine. Like I'm totally cool. I do not have. I don't think I could ramble for 3 hours about format strings, but I certainly can go off the cuff on all of the pieces that I know are in there. Did you have a deep burning question? Something that was missed? Okay, then we'll just ramble a bit about format strings and how they work. Now, format strings are something that we've had in pwn.college and not had in pwn.college, because people claim that it's not relevant, right? Like it's fallen. It's so trivial now that it never happens. But every couple of years, something does. I do not want to solve level 1, so we will build. Let's get rid of whatever do.c was, rip, and make a new binary. So format string vulnerabilities exist because of one problem. Is everyone familiar with how printf works? If not, we can take a look at the old man page here. It is not a syscall. It is a whoopsie function. So printf takes this very, very informative function description here. Char star format, comma, and then dot, 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 right? That is not particularly helpful unless you're familiar with that syntax. What that dot, dot, dot is implying is it's a variadic argument, which means that you could have you could pass 2 arguments, you could pass 3 arguments, you could pass 100 arguments, right? Now, the important thing for format strings is this first argument format. And if we take a look down here, it says the format of the format string. So a format string is a C string that consists of string characters, and then we have a special escape sequence. Typically, when we think of this in typical use, this is % followed by some character. And this character that follows the % indicates what kind of data we are going to format. And if we were to look, not here, conversion specifiers, we see that, for instance, %d means that printf is going to interpret the next argument as an integer. And so we have this format string that consists of some number of %ds, and the function will look for every %d, it will look for an argument that corresponds to that %d. And that's how it's intended to be used. Let's go back to our do.c. Let's actually use this thing. We'll use it correctly. Let's have tmux. All right, big surprise. I used this correctly. I said printf %d. Printf does not append a new line by default, so I have /n so that this looks sane. And 12, and as you would expect, printf outputs 12. Now, there are other format specifiers that I could specify. For instance, %s. And now we see I did this as the programmer. I added a second % symbol or escape here, right? Kind of like format. I don't know what the word for that is. % thing. I added a % thing, right? And so for every % thing that's in there, I'm also adding an argument, right? And that's because I'm a good programmer and I never make a mistake. Now, the problem with format strings is when some other programmer that's not does make a mistake. Right? Well, what happens if I have %d, %s, but I provide one argument? Does that work? Is it a compiler error? It compiles. When I run it, apparently I get D. Sometimes I get, right? Wait, what is this? Well, we have to think about what printf is actually doing and what is %s or what is %d. And that goes back to our man page. See if I can speed run that. So when I say s, it's going to print a string. And that is a simple way of saying that it is expecting the argument to be a pointer to an array of characters. Now, I didn't provide that argument in my C code. So what do you think the assembly looks like? Keep that where it is. All right, because it's the assembly that's actually running here. Like this doesn't make sense at the C level, but the C is going to get compiled down to assembly. Oh no, that's a shame. We're back to Jeff, man. I know what I like. Okay, and we'll do that. We'll probably switch back another time. Yeah, we'll see. So we'll start break it main, and let's disassemble this. There's not too much going on here. Well, we called printf, and based upon our knowledge of calling conventions, what is the first argument? Like if I were to break here at, what is that, main plus 30? What's the first argument to printf? Where is that stored in the assembly? It's not a trick question. Oh, did it show it? Jeff is just too good. Jeff is just too sweet of a plugin. All right, PwnBuddy probably does the same thing. But yes, so the first argument to printf is, or to a function is stored in RDI, which we see right here is the pointer to our format string. The second argument to a function is stored in RSI, which is C, which is my 12. All right, but our format string has more than, is expecting more arguments. So where is it going to look for that third argument? I have to like say it like in a pattern. It's like a song or a jingle to me. RDI, RSI, it's RDX, right? And like I don't just know these things. And so if we look at what is RDX, in this case, it happens to be a pointer. I actually didn't know it happened with %f. There was a non-zero chance it would set fault, right? And so this is a valid pointer. It just happens to be there. I didn't put it there. It didn't happen from my compiled assembly code, or it didn't happen from my C code. It happened because whatever happened to be, it doesn't even look like it's influenced by this binary, or in my main function. It just happens to be a pointer, or happens to be whatever was set in RDX prior to main even being called. And this is where the problem lies. We can get this kind of weird undefined behavior when our arguments don't match up with the format string. Now, an attacker, the like classic example of a format string vulnerability is not when a programmer makes this mistake, right? But this does demonstrate kind of the functionality of printf. Instead, it's what happens when the programmer tries to be clever, and you should just never be clever, right? We'll have a format buffer, and we will read from standard in to the format buff. We're not going for a buffer overflow here. We're just going to say, yeah, I'll print off whatever format string you provide me, right? And I trust that you will always type %d. All right. Today we will make the compiler happy. We have time for such things. So I can run a.out right now. I'm blocked on read. I give it a string of %d. I get my 12. If I run this, if I give it %s, what do you think is going to happen? This one I think I know. %s is expecting a pointer
To some string.
to
A string.
some
And a character.
character array.
Well, simple.
Right. It's going to try and treat 12, which is the one thing that I still have fixed here, as a pointer. It's going to try and dereference 12, and we say false. So I can definitely make the program crash when I have control of this format buffer. But we can do quite a bit more. What happens if I run this and I say, okay, well, I don't want to look at that first one. We'll keep it as %d, right? That doesn't explode. But let's start giving it other values. I'm going to go with x, and then %x, %x, %x. Well, I get reasonable looking values. And we saw when the format string itself has more %things than the arguments defined in the C code, we just follow calling conventions and just throw out whatever's in that register. So this 12 is what's in RSI, 0's in RDX. This is going to be what? RCX, R8, R9. You agree? Did I get it wrong with RCX? All right, well, believe me. You shouldn't. All right, you should never believe me, and you should question everything that I say.
It's actually R10.
Is it R10? That's why you shouldn't believe me. All right, we run it. We said %d, %x, 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 %x. We'll go to the next instruction so that we get the values. Did Jeff? Okay, cool. We got 0, 0. We'll say CA060. Does this correspond with our understanding of what's going on? I'd have to scroll up just a little bit. RDI, RSI, RDX is 0. You say R10. Okay, it could be either or here, right? We haven't ruled that one out, but we get the 0, 0. 6. And then we have R9 here, which is the CAC or CA60, right? Now I said %x, and so it's interpreting that from, find x here. Come on, x. Okay, so x is going to give me a hex conversion of the number, but by default, it's going to assume that it's an integer. I don't know if I can find it here in the man page. This one you can trust her. And that is why, despite this register with CA60 having a larger number than what was displayed, we're only seeing the least significant 4 bytes. And so now we're close to like leaking something from a register. Yeah. So let's %d, and then let's if we read the man page, we'll see that there is a size or length modifier. And so if %x was assuming that it's an int, which is 4 bytes, I can provide it LX or LLX. Just give me a long, right? Which in this case, a register is 8 bytes. So let's make everything as longs in hex. And now I've managed to leak out a full register value. Well, we said that this dot 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 allows for an arbitrary number of arguments, right? Are there an arbitrary number of registers? There are not. So the question is, if I keep providing percent %LLX, percent %LLX, percent %LLX, where does it look? Somebody, see, you did watch something, all right? The answer is it goes to the stack. And this is where things start to get interesting. Because the odds of the exact thing that an attacker wants being in the register at the time of printf being called is quite low. But the odds of it something you're interested in being on the stack is reasonably high. So let's put something interesting on the stack. We have something interesting on the stack. Secret number. I don't want to do Rob directly. Yeah. The secret number is 42. And so that 42 is on the stack. Now, instead of doing all this just in the terminal, let's start scripting this like a sane person. We will use pwn tools. And all I'm doing is sending some value and then seeing what happens, right? And so I could say my payload is going to be percent %s plus like some byte strings, percent %LLX times 100. Let's do 100. All right. Throw in some new lines. Right now, format string doesn't just have to consist of these magic percent things. I can put whatever I'd like here. So let's put one there. Oh, let's get real fancy. Let's say for I in range 100. Payload plus equals. This is kind of funny because I'm using a Python format string to construct a format string, but we'll go with it. So what I have here now, assuming that I wrote this correctly, is we should get every line should be an incrementing number followed by the.
You have a plus B, the first payload.
Yeah, we shouldn't have plus B. RIP.
Oh, you never sent the payload.
Oh, you're correct. What do I do now? We said what did I give you? Oh, percent %s should be percent %d. We don't want to dereference the number 12. Did that get too long? Probably. I can't write a for loop though. Imagine being able to implement a number in a loop. So I failed to do that, but we get to see now that there's our 12. These are our registers. These first, what would that be? The format string is an RDI, so we have RSI, RDX. Oh, you're counting to 6? Yeah. I like it. So the first 6 are the registers, and the 7th entry, if I could write incrementing numbers in a for loop, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one here should be a value that is at RSP. Let's see if we can verify that.
You might want to fix the for loop. Just get rid of the times 10.
You blame the time? Oh, yeah, because we're looping. Good call. All right. Run that guy. Disassemble main. We'll break at the call to printf, which is main plus 70 now. And what I'm interested in is what is a giant hex that's at RSP? It is this thing, right? Let's just dump out like 20 of these so that we have them, and then we'll continue. If we look at the value, the giant hex that is at RSP is 2031. I did this correctly. I did not. 2031 is there. So we are starting at, for this guy, why is that happening? That should not be there. But we see this does go to the stack. I'll think about it in a moment. Why? The important thing to see here is that this does get to the stack. And so if we were to look at these values that are being printed out, as well as what was the state of the stack at the time printf was called, this does correspond. We're just leaking out 8 bytes at a time on the stack. Yes? Sweet. Somewhere on here is going to be my secret number of 42. What is 42 in hex? 2A. I don't get to see my 2A? That's a shame. I didn't go far enough, I guess. Because we should have seen my secret secret number there on the stack. There's our I. Range 20. D, that is what's going. 39 hours, 39. The thing that's bothering me at the moment is why that came out at 4. But we'll carry on. Now, I could do this if I were an attacker and just keep sending, for instance, %LLX, it'd leak memory like this, yeah. But that's kind of irritating. And it would be irritating for me if I were trying to use printf correctly. And so there's a more advanced syntax of printf, where I can specify which argument I am trying to print. This syntax is it's like half of this. It's percent number, $, and then the thing you're trying to format. So if I wanted to just print out the 7th argument, it should be %7 $LLX. Now, that is 1. And so now I don't have to print out all of this nonsense to start accessing later values. Now, I have a question for you guys. I don't know. I have a question for myself. Is that format string is in the, where is that? This is the thing I always get wrong. I've done this like every year. I need this character array to be on the stack. Is it on the stack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, if it's in a function, it's on the stack.
You would think that. There's videos of me failing to put a function, put a character array on the stack. It's like a yearly
Which one?
yearly
The
occurrence.
main character or the format?
This-
Yeah, it's on the stack.
Oh yeah, yeah, because this would go to read only. Yeah. That's why I failed to get it on the stack. I have lost that battle every semester. Okay, so the question I asked myself that we assured ourselves is, where is this format string from? It's on the stack. And what am I printing out? The stack. So like I'm kind of, if I were to do this repeatedly, in fact I might be doing it right now. What do you think this is? This nonsense I printed out?
Is it our own LLX stuff?
Yeah,
The-
yeah. We're printing ourselves out, and so we should be able to see this. If instead of doing, where's my LLX? Oh, I can't. Okay, we could do this. Let's do P. What do I want? Let's have a signal value. And payload is going to have some signal value. I will receive until signal, because this signal that I'm adding up here is inside my format string, which means that when I run this now, it should dump out the word signal. I have just forgotten how computers work, guys. Payload plus equals signal, payload plus equals. That is how a format string works. We print that out. Am I not running, am I editing like the different file? That would be classic.
So that
Oh, I ate it right here. Okay.
oh,
Yeah, I had the P receive until. Okay. And so what I did here is I just want to have something so that I can start consuming this. And then instead of showing this index, let's just rapid fire %LLX. We'll receive until signal. We will then P receive line. And then I want to convert this. So I want bytes from, this is what I should have done dealing with data. But what is it? I think it's bytes from hex out.
pretty sure, yeah.
And then that's going to give me the bytes, at which point I decode it in Latin 1. 365 people watching, you just saw it matter. And we'll print just that. That will, now I got to receive a number of lines here because I want to eat this, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll eat 9 lines. Just because I don't care about them. I want to get down into the meat of that where that stuff looked like ASCII. Rip. Bytes from hex. That should be good.
Oh, maybe because you're receiving integers, it's not seeing everything. Because out is just gonna be a string. It's not gonna interpret it. Yeah, it's by
Oh, it's okay. So we'll drop the new line. And then we will decode that. That's fine. All right. Huzzah. Okay, there's my print there, which is the hacks. And this is a little bit fugly. Well, maybe because the first byte here happened to be a new line character, right? But we're seeing our format string. These bytes are our own format string. And so we're actually writing a format string that's printing out ourself. It's just not in the form that we know. Right? Now, it's cool right now that we can examine ourselves and we can look at the stack, right? But what did percent %s do? Back when we were looking at the man page, we said percent %s is for strings, and it is expecting a character pointer, right? A pointer to somewhere in memory that has a number of characters. And it's looking on the stack for that. But what we've just seen here is we control the stack, right? So could I put in my input the bytes that are a pointer to somewhere in memory and then figure out which percent %s is going to coincide with myself? The answer is yes. And so when we start thinking about format strings and format string exploits, we think about the stack as a series of 8-byte chunks. These 8-byte chunks are just chilling here. One of them is going to be the, we'll say, 7th argument, right? We could access it here. The next one would be the 8th argument. And at some point, if our format string is on here, these chunks will consist of user-controlled input, which means we can self-reference. My pre-recorded lectures do way better than this YOLO, but that makes sense, yeah? That we can go and look at ourselves. And so if I put inside my format string a pointer here, then there is some percent number, this is going to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, percent $12 that will specifically refer to this location inside myself. The problem with format strings is that because it is self-referential, when you change what you're doing, it changes the number to access this. Like if I were to suddenly to be like, oh, I want a %d here, I want a space, that's going to shift everything so that it doesn't line up with these 8-byte chunks. We have to think of everything on the stack as 8-byte increments. And if we modify our format string and start putting more interesting things in it, it's going to shift it. And we could see that if we, where's my do.py? Let's make our payload AAA B followed by percent. Let's do $7 LLS. I want to find these B's, right? It's probably not at the 7th spot.
Well, the payload is now just A, B.
That it does happen to be right there at 7. That's funny. Okay. So what I'm looking at is this is the format string being printed out. I'm choosing it because I want it to not be correct here. All right. So this is what it's printing out. A B B B B. This is corresponding to itself. I'm then saying, give me the 8th argument to this printf call, which is going to look past what was in the registers and it's going to start looking on the stack. Now the 8th argument happens to be these bytes, and we see this 626262. What is this 626262? Yeah, it's the B's that are on the stack that is itself. So in this case, I'm looking at how many B's do I have? 1, 2, 3. And so I'm seeing these last 3 B's. So my B's are not lined up with the 8th argument. So what I would need to do is I would need to add padding to my format string. Let's add 3 more A's. So I want to get this thing to just say 62626262. Not enough A's, right? And we in fact see one of my A's right here. So I actually have shifted too far. Let's give it some more B's. So I only have what, 5 there? And so now I'm able to control the value that is being accessed on the stack. This %8 is referencing these B's that are in the input. So I'm looking at myself there. Well, what would happen if instead I made this, instead of LLX to show the hacks, I did %S. I'm going to be dereferencing these B's as a pointer, which would segfault. But you could envision that I could make this a pointer instead. Now, this is a loose approximation of, I believe, level 3. Level 3 of this module asks you, and it's something that people make a regular mistake on. Level 3 says, hey, the flag is somewhere in the BSS. I believe it's a constant value, right? So there's just some address that you need to go leak the secret. And people watch the lecture videos and they jump to this idea that I need to start doing writing with my format string, which we haven't even talked about yet. You don't. All right. The structure of the modules are arbitrary read stuff, arbitrary write stuff, do some shenanigans. We're still in the level 3 is still in this arbitrary read thing. So we could make this B be a pointer. We'll run into a problem if I do this. Anyone know what the problem is going to be?
Just put a random point.
Well, I'm going to find something.
Print out a string.
Yeah, user bin, GCC. What do I want? No PIE. Let's see if that works. The dojo is a methodological place where stuff like that doesn't work sometimes. Okay, so I have that. Let's take a look at that in IDA. Hopefully my Rob is in the read-only section, as we predicted here, at which point we should be able to snag it, just as a constant address. Since I don't use it, IDA's just not going to show me. What a bummer. Do you know how I can find a string in IDA? Otherwise, I'm going to default to my one and only love GDB.
I'm in GDB up today.
I see, everyone else knows GDB.
Ninja.
You use Binja? I'm pretty sure binge is getting fixed, but I saw the PR get merged. I don't know if it's on prod yet. All right. Do I have this pointer? Yes. Well, no, I think that's it right there.
Doesn't look right, but maybe.
Is R not 72? It is. So for whatever reason, it,
There's not a constant in the data section. It's moving it onto the stack bucket.
uh,
Is that what?
that, because like that, I saw the B. So that's ROP getting moved to the whatever address is here at RVP minus 114. That's lame. Okay, let's put it. Let's just not go down that rabbit hole.
No, maybe it's a difference between doing like char star name versus char name, like brackets. One might treat it as like a stack buffer versus a pointer to a constant.
It could. Let's make this easily accessible with a format string. All right. Disassemble main. There's there is name. It exists. At a constant address. All right. Good things have happened. So, my goal is to leak out the name that is chilling up here inside the binary. And so I have this address. It is a constant. And so you would reasonably say, let's do this, right? Where we know from down below where my B's were, which is right here, lines up with the 8th argument. I'm now going to treat that 8th argument, which is referencing on the stack myself, which is going to this pointer that I put here, which should then get dereferenced and point to the Rob string. Everyone agree? Yeah. Anyone think it's going to work? No. So we run our do.py, and I can't write Python. You can fix it. But it still doesn't work. I get my A's. I have a
You print out.
0 character, which makes some sense. That is, if you don't know, hex 30 is 0. So like this is just something that burns into your brain. You eventually start just knowing from ASCII. And then we get at. I did not know that one, but it makes sense. We're at 40, 40, 30. So why didn't I get to dereference that? This is something that you guys dealt with in the prior module, but it's something that people don't. For whatever reason, this level, like this sub problem, trips people up. What is it? You know what it is. I can tell. Do you know what it is?
I put it before class.
You
got
did
around to
this.
I made this mistake and then fixed it.
Okay, so you went through the pain. I think you're past it. So somebody say what it is. I don't remember. Oh, it hurts. It hurts, man. Okay. So what is the literal bytes that's happening here? We have X414144141, right, from all the A's. Maybe it's 61. I don't know. It's one of the two.
Did not like aligned it nice 8 like junk like
No, it's a line. Like, what is P64 of 40, 40, 30?
gives 8 bytes, but is it not like on that line?
No. It's our old friend, the null byte, right? How are strings terminated? Null bytes. So what have I done when I've constructed this format string? I have implicitly terminated my format string somewhere in this P64, right? And since we're the Lindian, I get 30, 40, 40, and then the next thing that it's not the read, it's the printf, right? The read is going to take in all this. But when printf tries to interpret it as a C string, it's going to see 30, 40, 40, null byte, null byte, null. It's done. So are we just, this is impossible? It is. I agree. It's impossible, right? Computers are secure. This is all solved. We can fix this. But what do I have to do? Well, if I know that this is implicitly going to be, it has to be the last thing in my format string, let's make it the last thing. We'll have $8 and we'll throw it there. Anyone think this is going to work? Why?
Because we move things around.
Right. This is typically what happens when people start doing format string stuff, right? You start with something like this because it kind of makes sense. I can have some A's and some B's. I can find the edge. I'm trying to line things up. And then, okay, well, now that's segfaulted, but now I don't want this anymore because I need to find this. So this needs to be some B's instead. And you go on this like impossible egg hunt, right? I'm trying to line stuff up and oh, well, now I'm %S. Well, I didn't want that. So now this needs to be LLX. But the act of changing from S to LLX, did I shift things? Yes, I did. Right. And you can just go mad doing this. You absolutely can. And people do every semester. Because you don't think about the fact that just changing this format, this one character is shifting everything by 2. And so this is, but you could do this, and people have solved this module doing it this way. So I think in honor of them, we should at least finish this pain together.
May not end the cycle of pain.
No, the cycle of pain must continue because there's 2 fixes I can show, and both of them have their own other kind of pain.
I
And
think this is how I went through the budget.
this is the first pain that I think everyone should experience when they first start messing around with format strings, right? Because you're dealing with it from first principles, and you're just like, okay, what can I reason about what's going on? I just realized that I have talked for far longer than I expected. So let's take our peaceful moment of Zen before we go further down the rabbit hole. That. All right, I think we're back. Somebody pointed out that we had a logo change, so I should probably update my pause screen. But let's finish this out. So I gave it, where am I at here? 9 LLX, and now we're still seeing A's, right? Because now my thing that's being displayed is between my A's and my B's, which is why we see A followed by whatever is at argument 9, followed by my B's. And so I really only care about the thing that is in the percent thing, right?
You mean our B's?
I'm looking for B's,
Yeah.
but these B's here are not
Just
from
those
this.
ones. Yeah.
They are from these hard-coded B's in my
So
form.
you're looking for 62.
I'm looking for 62, right? And so we could fish a little bit further. Maybe 9 was the right number and I didn't save. Let's find out. No. So then it should be. Why am I seeing weird stuff there? What am I looking at? So nine's my A's. 10, this is some weird stuff. Is this all broken? Why is this happening? You just keep going. Ignore the nonsense, make number bigger. All right.
It's LLX.
Yeah. The answer was it is this percent $11 LLX that I'm looking at.
31 0.
Now,
On the not on the 62 one. No.
there's the 30.
Yeah.
yeah.
So 1 and 10. 1 and 0.
Yeah. And so yeah, I'm still looking at myself. I'm just looking at this, which is way less obvious than when I'm printing out A, right? And so I hit 11. I have 626262. So now I just change this to percent %S and it's going to work.
Gotta change the B's.
Okay, so instead of the B's,
Sad or sweet.
we have this. Are you a believer? I'm not a believer.
I want to say my work optimistic.
Okay. So I'm gonna repeat this change that I think you. So we started with LLX, and then I just change this, and I take 3 characters and I replace them with 1 character. Right. That is not a recipe for success because I have to account for those characters that I remove. And so I started off with these A's, and when I changed my format string here, I had to account for that and pad further with these extra B's here. Now this printed out wrong.
Rob
Getting-
already prints. Yeah,
Really? I ripped? Oh, I segfaulted. Gosh dang it. I was a believer now.
Because you need 2 Robs.
I need Rob.
Because you
Oh,
already printed.
we don't have Rob. How'd we go wrong there? Let me just throw in an extra B.
Yeah.
All right. Why did that one work? I went from LLX.
Oh, did you increase the number or maybe the digit increased past it was like what, 9 or 8 or 9 previously, and now we're up to 11, so there's 2 digits, so then it's wait, that doesn't make sense.
But we already
That'd be
accounted
one.
But we got there. Oh, percent dollar sign. Yeah, but you see how I'm going to try and change this, and I'm referencing myself, and now this padding isn't right, so I have to fiddle with the padding to try and make this work, also that I can access this pointer, right? And so what's happening here is this format string gets passed into this printf, which then is going to look for the 11th argument, which is on the stack, which is an element of the input itself, which then grabs this pointer, dereferences it, and this extra Rob down here is actually the Rob from the BSS. and not this printf up here at the top. And so we were able to leverage our self-referencing to gain an arbitrary read. Yeah? Pretty cool. You can do arbitrary, right? Do you want to go down that rabbit hole? Or do you want to look at how to make this be less pain? Less pain? I'm going to say it's different pain, but we can do it. So the one thing that I would strongly suggest, if you're going to start carving things by hand, is just at various points, make your payload just be padded to a constant length. Right? If I do this, then it doesn't matter if I change stuff in here from LLX to, like, what was the length of this? How many of these do I have? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Like, if I were to just pad this to 24, what's up? That's the new way of saying it.
The arguments are flipped, right? It's
Oh, count followed by type.
Screw that up too.
I'll scrap everything, man. All right, so we got our Rob. And now, in theory, this should still work. And it does, right? Because what I've done is I've eliminated the need for me to like pad all of these bytes. I said, here's some stuff that I want, and then make it X long. So now my address that I'm referencing is always 24 bytes deep into my input string. And this 24 bytes will always correspond to this 11th argument, right? It's important that whatever your LJust number here is actually corresponds to these 8-byte alignments, right? If I were to make this 25, that's going to shift that pointer, and all of a sudden we're going to segfault again. And so you still have that. You still have that problem. But you can actually get pretty far with giving yourself, and it doesn't need to be 24, it can be a bigger number. In fact, I'd encourage a bigger number. By just LJusting this to say 100, and then you just know, maybe it needs to be a multiple of 8, and 100 is not. 64 is. But you put your pointers and stuff that you want to reference deep into your format string, because now I can change this and say there's more than one argument that I want to have, right? And I want to print out something else at 12. This won't actually work because of the null byte, but you could envision something like this, right? At which point I now have this section of here's the stuff that I'm referencing, and then here's my format string shenanigans up above. And just keep those separate. And this LJust will ensure that these don't change and move around on you. All right. The other thing that you can do, if you are brave, is use pwn tools. Usually, we're big fans of pwn tools, right? The pwn tools format string library, there's two elements to it. There's I'm going to call it a finder. So we did the finding of ourself, right? We rammed in A, B, and we were like, okay, what $sign represents ourselves? And we did that by hand. There's two things that pwn tools offers. The first is to automate that, right? Because in a more complicated binary, this binary only has a few things chilling here on the stack. It was pretty easy for us to find ourselves. It may be really far away. right? Or envision what happens if the format string is not in the same function frame, but it's actually several function calls higher, right? It may be quite far away, and we'll spend a lot of time just trying to dump out memory. And so what you can use is what's shown right here in the old documentation. You create a format string object with a function that defines how to interact with it. And what the PwnTools library is going to do is it's going to repeatedly call this until it finds the AAAB, right? It's going to do that work for you. And you end up with this auto format object. So let's see if we can just yoink that. Whoop. Because our helps if I paste from the correct buffer. Our binary happens to work in the same way that this example uses, right? How do I interact with this? We start up the process, we send it a payload, and this payload is just whatever the input is to the function, and then we return whatever the program said, right? And that happens to be how our example binary works. So then we make this format string object, and we fire it off.
You wanna go back to the code? You don't have the program. Program is
You're a believer now?
on it.
Okay. It's fair. Like, I probably got like a, you know, 20% success rate. Okay. Did it work? No. What happened? I don't know. I see this word on my screen and it makes me grumpy.
Can you do some sort of pre-filter on the output before it gets returned?
So if I run this, it's send get, right? So that, oh, oh. The classic blunder.
Um,
Right? It never gets old. Right? You forget the boilerplate. And so what happened here is PwnTools fired a process a bunch of times. It figured out where the offset is, right? It found the format string offset at 8. And so that's kind of nifty, right? I don't know what this thing actually is. It's I've never looked at it. Auto. Does it have any cool properties? All right, so we've got an offset and we have a pad length. Now these values are needed in the second functionality of PwnTools, and what people tend to mess up is this pad length number. The offset is 8. Why is it 8? Because it's the first thing on the stack, right? No? You shake your head at me.
there's 6 registers. And
I can't count.
zero,
RDI,
so
RSI, RDX.
It's set for 30 to the 31 stuff.
You're right. So it would be at RSP plus 8. Yeah, you are correct. So this 8, right? RDI is the format string.
3 up, right? Or is it 1?
No.
Oh,
That doesn't count.
doesn't count. Oh yeah. Okay.
Right? RDI doesn't count for variadic arguments for printf because RDI is the format string.
Yep.
Your one is RSI.
You can't reference 0. It just doesn't work.
I've never tried, but I don't think it
Probably.
would. I don't think it would work. So RSI, RDX, or CX, R8, R9 plus 16, which is always be 6.
Except +8.
Gosh dang it. Ah, there's so many recordings of me failing to do this. But the number that people mess up is this, or don't understand, is this pad number. How we were shifting, remember when I changed LLX to S and then I had to add the additional B's? That is padding, right? Now you run there's another number. Does this show it? Let me see. Yes, okay. And so that's what padding is. And padding is the number of extra bytes to shift things to be aligned by 8. The other number that people get really confused about is num written. Num written matters when we write, but it also matters to pwn.tools itself. This isn't going to be valid C, but imagine that we don't have full control of the format string, right? And there's some nonsense that gets output before this that will also influence our math. But we can just trust pwn.tools and be like, cool, we got this auto format thing, right? The other thing that pwn.tools offers is the format string payload. This is the function that confuses everyone. So up here, we got our offsets. Now, format string payload is a nice function in the sense that you just provide a dictionary of like, I want to write 1 at address 1337. And pwn.tools will just figure it out. All right, it'll just do it. But it has to have the correct arguments for num written, for pad length, for offset. It needs to know these things. And so what you end up doing is using the first part here to, where am I? Use this first part to get that data. And then you pass the data that you got from auto format into the payload generation. We just set this up as a dictionary, and it's just target value. So let's write, where was Rob? 40, 40, 30? Oh, that's going to be read-only, isn't it? That'll be read-only.
I don't know though, because like when we had it on the stack, it's like, I'm not sure if the like square brackets are doing weird things to it.
You don't trust square brackets, man?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see if we can change Rob to something else. So at address 40, 40, 30, I want the value to be 1337. We give it rights equals rights. And let's see what it says for passing that in. No, don't do that. We said num written was 0. What is this first argument? Let's find out together. Offset. Did we get that offset from somewhere? We did. That is my auto format offset. So then we start up a process like normal. This is our process that we're actually interacting with. I'm going to block the pointing, so I want to throw GDB on it. Okay, we calculated our offset. I did not. Oh, yeah, we're blocked on input. Sudo GDBA 10956. Cool. We'll go to the main frame, get some context. I want to break at main plus 61. Let that fire. Where am I? Oh no, Jeff. Where have we gone? We've gone to a dark place. We've gone to a very dark place. I have a feeling this is going to result in a seg fault.
Oh, your breakpoint is broken somehow. If you remove the breakpoint, you can continue. I don't know what happened though.
I only had one breakpoint.
It thinks the breakpoint isn't like it's not
Or,
valid. Like,
delete
the address
breakpoint.
space is destroyed somehow.
Yeah,
That was that's impressive. Okay. So now we're 315. Frame 1. Disassemble. I'll use the full address right here. This is a reasonable place to set a breakpoint, right? Okay. All right. Let's see if we get banished to the shadow realm again here.
Yeah.
This happened.
Oh, I know what's happening.
What's happening?
Isn't the process just exiting? Like your Pwn tools, you don't have like interactive at the end or anything, do you? I think the Python script is exiting and it's killing the process.
Oh, another classic blunder.
I don't know why it does that, though. That's really strange.
Well, because I shouldn't. Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, today is just not a hit. 11645. All right. So we executed the nonsense that Pwn Tools generated, which apparently was %55C $11 you can see it there on the stack. This is the full format string that Pwn Tools decided to generate. I do think it's worth writing these by hand, at least a little bit, just to get a feel for like how that works instead of just calling this Pwn Tools magic. And we should be able to examine the giant hex at, we said 40, 40, 30. This used to be Rob, hopefully. All right. It is no longer Rob. It is now 1337. And so we just said, hey, Pwn Tools, this is what I want. And take perform a write at address 40, 40, 30 with this loop, right? And Pwn Tools will do the math from there. And so it was super slick when I did this right now, right? It kind of worked. But when you start using this on the dojo, and there are challenges that specifically have this as a problem, this num written pad length shifting, it'll start to explode, right? And it will explode horrifically. You can fight the Pwn Tools library and get it to work, and it can work when you need to do writes. As far as I'm aware, it'd be super cool if somebody, Twitch, if you know Honto on the Discord, is a fairly knowledgeable person, right? They say I almost never use format string and almost always use format string payload. Well, you're generating the pay. What they're saying there is they utilize the payload generation if they want to do writes, but they don't rely on this format string here to calculate offsets and get the numbers to pass into it. That is the disconnect that tends to cause things to explode. As far as I'm aware, Pwn Tools does not have a convenient library for doing reads. Just, I'd be happy to be proven wrong there. And so that can make your life quite a bit easier, because generally speaking, when you're trying to do exploitation, reading is cool, right? But you want to try and overwrite a saved return address. You want to overwrite a God entry. You want to somehow gain control flow. And once you have control flow, that is when you can do your reading after you have control flow. So you leverage a write, get control flow, use that to read. So that is what you can do. And then the last comment I have here, there's a bit more, but I'm not going to show it, is the last level. The last level was way cooler when it first launched. The last level tells you, hey, you need to ROP, whatever. I don't care about the ROP sub problem. See if the dojo starts. The dojo is taking its sweet time. It doesn't. It says you get one printf. If we were to go into the libc source code of printf and how it works, I think about how I'm going to word this right. What if I saw that I could arbitrarily write? Yeah. One thing that you may want to do is arbitrarily write to the stack something to then reference it. Right. Well, I showed an example here as a proxy for level 3 that we can just inject that literal address thing. Right. But in a more complicated scenario, and this is a more complicated scenario, you may come to the realization that, hey, what makes sense is what if I used the ability of an arbitrary write to write values onto the stack to then $ reference those locations, right? That sounds really cool. The problem is it doesn't work. As part of the implementation of printf, and I wish I had the link handy. Because otherwise we'd go down a deep rabbit hole of libc, which is not worth it. If a format string has a $, you can think of it as if printf takes a snapshot of that string, and it cannot be further manipulated. What it actually does is it makes a copy of that string and references that instead of the literal string that's on the stack. And so you can inject values into the literal when you're passing in the format string, but you can't use the format string to modify the format string to then reference the modified values.
Couldn't you go change the copy? You don't know.
The question was, couldn't you then go modify the copy? At face value, sure. I don't know where that copy is. It wouldn't surprise me if in the implementation, it calls like malloc, right? It dynamically allocates some region of memory, copies it, and then references that copy. So in order to do that, you would have to know where is printf going to put it. Now, there was an important caveat to what I just said there. It was if your format string has $, right? If your format string does not have $, you can do that type of shenanigans. It's very important for this later level. It used to be something you had to do by hand, and you had to write it all out yourself. And then someone very, very smart did our dojo, and they filed a PR to Pwn Tools on format string payload for this argument right here. Like, I don't think it's fair to not share that, because otherwise some people will spend the time trying to write it by hand. The intention was to write it by hand. But somebody went through the pain of doing it by hand and writing their own logic, and then they PR'd their logic to Pwn tools. So now you can just pass this no dollars flag here. I would still encourage people to try and write it by hand, because it is an interesting exercise, right? Because now you have to deal with all of the padding and spacing and all of that nonsense to generate a self-modifying format string. But it does exist now. So that's.
I'll remember it last day.
I hope you forget it. Like you are like one of the people that I would love to hear about your experience writing it by hand. Because that's what we had to do back when we walked uphill both ways, right? Does anyone have questions about how this format string works? The pre-recorded lecture videos are much more structured in like, here is an arbitrary read. This is how we do. Here's an arbitrary write. This is how we do it. And so if you are looking for that, that's definitely there. But when we think about format strings, it is quite literally just how do we self-reference and then go dereference them. And then the things that we need to think about are, where are things in memory? What is our padding, shifting the stuff around on the stack? And then what format string $sign or percent thing, since that's what we're going with, what percent thing we need to use to properly represent the data that I'm looking at. Percent sign. There's got to be a proper word for this. Ooh, it could be specifier. Let's see. Format string is a character string, beginning and end. Format string is 0 or more. Ordinary characters. Does it say what it is?
At the end of the paragraph, the format string, at the end of the first paragraph under that heading, it says ends with a conversion specifier.
Ooh, okay. So we just forget the whole, every time I said percent thing, pretend I said conversion specifier. Right, that sounds way cooler too.
Lecture's twice as long.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to redo everything right now.
Conversion specifier is what follows the.
Oh, we got it wrong? It's not called a
It's
conversion
introduced by
specifier?
the character, and then the conversion specifier is the part after it.
So they're two different.
So it's a
So it's
part
like the
of.
introduction to.
Oh
Uh,
my god! I was not percent at that point.
Percent thing? We're back to percent thing? I like it. There's definitely a bit more to format strings and this conversion specifier percent thing. There is more than $sign. Printf is in fact Turing complete. And so you can once you start self-referencing yourself, you can model a whole computer there. Like you're good to go. But you end up using fancier or funkier, depending upon how you look at it, functionality. For instance, one of the challenges, and it's talked about in the lecture, utilizes the star specifier, and there is a magic one-off that you can throw in as a format string that performs an atomic copy, right? And so you have to play around with it. But at face value, this is what you're doing. It just gets a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole. I got a couple questions or comments from Twitch, and if nobody here has anything, I'm going to call it there. I'm amazed that I'm approaching the 2-hour mark on format strings. Yeah, they said they just do reads manually. Oh, they're doing, there's a community dojo. It's called Hydra. It was made by a very early Pwn College member. I don't think they're on the Discord anymore. But they wrote their own printf challenge, which I think I solved that one. But it's pain if you're interested. All right. Does anyone have any questions about this stuff? No?
Not today.
Not today. That's fair. I think I've been pretty responsive on the Discord. If not, like ping me, yell at me, right? I'll try and answer questions there. With that, I'll leave y'all. Goodbye. Good luck. I'll see you next week. Next week, I have to be prepared because file struct exploits is got quite a bit more going on. But this week's kind of chill. It better be.